Hey, what's up? It's Jake from DevOps, and we're here today to talk to you about JSON Web Tokens. So, a JSON Web Token, or JWT, is a JSON based open standard for creating tokens that assert some number of claims. So, JWTs are frequently used as authentication tokens. So, in this context, the claims are typically statements about the identity and permissions of an authenticated user. You'll see this a lot in AWS, so hopefully this also explains some things about how authentication works. So the tokens are cryptographically signed, which makes it possible to verify that the content of the token has not been modified since it was issued. And if you want to check it out more of that, you can go to jwt.io and it's got all kinds of info on it. So the type of token is comprised of three sections separated by a dot in the form of like A dot B dot C dot. B, the middle part, is the payload, where we would put the claims. C is the signature, which is used to verify the validity of the token. And A is the header, which identifies the token as a JWT. That'll indicate the algorithm used to compute the signature. And A, B, C are all encoded with URL safe base64 encoding. And the base64 URL encoding makes it possible to use JWTs as part of URLs, typically as like a query parameter. But JWTs also appear in other places like HTTP headers. So the way the token works is different than what you've seen so far, and the information that the token carries is actually always visible. You just need to decode A and B's from the base64 URL to get the algorithm and the payload. The security comes in the third part, the C, which is an HMAC signature of the header and the payload. So if you try to modify either A or B by editing the header or the payload, encoding it back to base64 URL and replacing it in the token, the signature won't match and the token will be invalid. So you actually have to build a payload with claims such as like logged in as admin or something along those lines. As long as the token is valid, you can trust that the user is actually logged in as admin. So let's start with a simple example. So we're going to make a token.py, and we're just going to say import JWT, and we're going to make some data. So here's a data object, and we'll say we have a payload and data, comma, ID, and the ID will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so those are our two things that we have. So then we need a token, which will be using the JWT dot encode, and then we're just going to encode data and add some kind of secret key. And then our algorithms are going to be a sequence H S 256 and H S 512. Let me put this in quotes, and this should be a comma, not a period. There we go. So now I can say data underscore out will be jwt dot decode, and we're going to grab the token, the secret key, and we're going to set algorithms equal to algs. Then we're just going to print out our token so we can look at it, and then we'll print our data underscore out. All right, so let's run this and then talk about what exactly is going on. Oh, we got no module named JWT. So we can do a pip install JWT. Boom. Now let's try it. Clear. Ah, that's not what I wanted to do. Clear. There we go. Ooh, partially initialized module JP has no encom, which should be encode, and line, where are we looking at? Encode here. Save, clear, run it again. Most likely due to a circular import. Let me take a look at this. All right, so the data I have is an object, a payload, and data, and then ID, and then a number. My token is jwt.encode and then some data and a secret key. My algorithm set to a sequence of HS256 and HS512. And I've got data out set to JWT decode with a token, a secret key, and algorithms is set to algs. And then I'm printing the token, printing the data out. Okay, so why is this giving me problems? Let's close this because I did install something and reopen one and go to my Python scripts directory and call Python token. And it's probably because I named it token. Let's rename this. Whenever you get these circular references, check your file name. Let's just name it like that. And try Python toke instead. Python toke. No module name JWT. What? Pip install JWT. Attribute error. Module JWT has no attribute in line 5. Token JWT encode. Really? All right. Let me go pause this and figure out what's wrong. Okay, so what I was reading may have been out of date. What I ended up doing was I uninstalled JWT and then I tried to uninstall PyJWT, which didn't exist. And instead of using JWT, I upgraded my pip, and without doing anything else, you'll see that I did an uninstall and then I did an install of PyJWT. And after doing that, upgrading pip, I was able to run this and it worked just fine. So now that that's solved, let's talk about what happens. So we define the payload, which contains an ID and some payload data, create a token using the encode function, and then take the payload and the secret key. The secret key is used to generate the HMAC signature of the token header and the payload, and then we decode the token again, specifying the signature algorithms that are willing to accept, and the default used to calculate the token is SHA-256, but we can take 256 or 512 when decoding. If the token had been used or generated using a different algorithm, it would have been rejected and you'd get an exception. So in this, you'll see the token is a binary string of a base64 URL encoded piece of data. So we called the JWT decode, providing this correct secret key. And if you'd supplied a different key, you'd have gotten an error because the signature can only be verified with the same secret key that was used to generate it. In this case, just the word secret key. So if I had used secret ket, for example, and I tried to run the same thing, you would get an error and it would say signature verification failed. But if I actually pass the correct key here, it will succeed and you'll get your payload and everything. So sometimes you might want to be able to inspect the content of the token without verifying the signature first. And you can do that by just calling a decode. So I could do like jwt.decode, decode, and then just grab the token and our options and just pass verify signature and then just say false. And you could do it that way. It's useful. So like when the token payload, you need to recover the secret key, but it's an advanced thing, so I'm not going to go over any more of that. Instead, what we'll do is we'll use a different algorithm for computing the signature. So what I could do instead is do like a token 512 equals JWT dot encode and then we'll just say data, and then our secret key, and then our algorithm will be set to HS512 algorithm like that, and then our data out would be jwt.decode, and then we'll use token 512, our secret key. Let me spell this correctly really quick. Our secret key, and we'll say algorithms equals, and then in a sequence HS512, and then let's just print data out. Print data out like that. So we use a HS512 algorithm to generate the token on the decoding. In the decoding specified, we'd accept tokens generated using the HS512. The output is your original payload dictionary. So let's just look at what that looks like, and just a simple little thing here. I'm just going to print out a little line with a carriage return. In fact, I'll put one just like that and see what that looks like. Okay, so there you go. You're free to use whatever you want for the token payload, but there are some claims that have been standardized, so make sure you understand what those are, and those will give you a lot of control over the token and make it a lot more transferable in other places. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information and knowledge on tokens. Sorry, that was bothering me. I had to evenly space that out. On specifically JSON web tokens, they're used all the time, especially with front-end web development and things like that, and through authentication. So we're going to stop here, and the next section we will go on to registered claims.